Yeah. Yeah. What's cracking? Big dogs. Welcome. Bike to the headquarters. Welcome. Bike to the channel. My name is Nicholas. This is BDGE. Big dogs gotta eat. We did promise no more liquids on the table, so we're gonna take that, throw it over there. We'll take that, throw it over there. Yes, we've got a new laptop. We got the new laptop, and I'll tell you what, man. I was tweeting about this. The new Apple line of MacBook Pros is unbelievable. You know, like, here's the thing. For those of y'all that are new to the channel, by the way, we're gonna do a recap of all of Week 9's NFL games as it relates to this thing that we like to ruin our lives, fantasy football. We like to let ruin our lives, I should say. So we're gonna recap it all and talk about, the biggest injuries, early waiver wire pickups for Week 10, all that good shit. But I really need to give a shout out to, we'll see if this works flawlessly. We'll see how the laptop holds up during an hour-long live stream where we've got a camera hooked up, we've got lights and second monitors and shit. But right now, it already looks 45 times more clear than what my old laptop looked like. Is it looking crispy for y'all out there? Is it looking crispy? All right, well, Mac dropped a new line of MacBook Pros like a month ago, whenever they dropped their new products. And it has this new chip. All right, so here's what Apple does, right? Apple does this thing where, like, each year they very incrementally upgrade products. Like the iPhone really hasn't been upgraded in like 4 years in terms of, the value that it's giving off to consumers. Realistically, all they do is literally just add more fucking megapixels to a camera and then tell you it's like the new greatest thing. And they were like, oh, we upgraded the fucking processor. It's like, no, you didn't. It's the same shit. They do that with their computers a lot too. But every once in a while, they come around. This is why Apple is Apple. Because when they do finally say, hey, we're going to upgrade this, and what we've been working on for the last 5 years is this new product coming out, them motherfuckers do not miss, okay? Like the AirPods Pro, the AirPod Pros. I don't know if you guys had the AirPod Pros, but those are, to me, those are the best product that Apple's ever made. Those were like game changers. Those were like world-changing products. The AirPod Pros, the AirPods themselves were cool, all right? They were like the iPhone. But the AirPod Pros were basically literally took everything bad about the AirPods and made it good, all right? That's what I looked at the AirPod Pros. This new line of MacBook Pros is infallible. I said it yesterday on Twitter. Again, this M1 chip, right? The new chip is M1. They've been using Intel chips in their computers for a long time. They switched over to their own M1 chips, and this M1 chip is overdosing on fucking Adderall. This thing is so... I've never been on a laptop quite like this. So I like to give credit where it's due to anything, all right? To people, to technology, to companies, to brands, whatever it is. This new laptop is unlike anything I've ever used in the technology realm when it comes to surfing thy internet, all right? So fuck, if you were thinking about it, I would absolutely pull the trigger. This thing is incredible. Which means we're going to have a flawless live stream for y'all that are coming in. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. And y'all can follow me on the social medias. Right there. Nick Ercolano. You know what's funny? Like, I'm Italian, obviously, with the name Ercolano. Someone asked me the other day how I pronounce it, and they tried first before I told them, and they're like, Ercolano? And it's like, no, like, I'm not a fucking asshole. I'm not going to pronounce my name like that. But, like, my aunt, who's super Italian, does that sometimes. So it's like anyone who's a normal human would pronounce it like you are, the letter U, the letter R, Colano, Ercolano, right? Or maybe that's like a New Jersey, New York thing. At least my accent. Anyone who's like super Italian would be like, yeah, Colano. I'm like, what the fuck are you from the mid 1700s? All right, let's talk some football. And the first thing we're going to do is lose some money on Underdog. Because we've got our Monday night game tonight. We've got the Monday night game tonight. Y'all know what that means. We've got some pick'ems. We've got the Bears at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, If y'all have not dabbled with Underdog yet, you should absolutely do so. It's the best way to bring home the revenue. UnderdogFantasy.com. You could download the app in the App Store. If it's your first time depositing, you're going to use the promo code BDGE, and they're going to match whatever you put in your account up to $100. So if you want to put $50, your account's going to have $100 in it by simple mathematics. If you're going to put 75, you're going to have 150 in your account. Okay. So yes, that's what you should be doing. Underdog Fantasy. Link for the app is in the description. Make sure you download and use promo code BDGE. So Fields is coming off a big day or big week. 27 fantasy points. He rushed for like 100 yards. Now they're going against Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh has been red, smoking fucking hot. Fire directly out of a dragon's mouth on defense. I feel like this is going to be a comeback down to earth game for Justin Fields. Now, that might lead to a lot of scrambling because they're going to get a lot of pressure on him. I feel like he might end up with fewer than 185.5 passing yards. We do have to decide on a player prop from each side. Now, I kind of don't hate Marquis Goodwin over 11.5 receiving yards because he's the third wide receiver. He's running more snaps than Damiere Byrd. So he is the third wide receiver. I almost like both of these third wide receivers, James Washington and Marquis Goodwin, who are not good players, but 11.5 receiving yards is basically one reception. Now, Chicago's defense will be without Khalil Mack, and we saw them just absolutely get schwalloped last week. I think it was to the 40. I forget who they lost to last week, but it wasn't good. I think it was 33-22 or some shit they lost. I might just be making that up, but I remember their defense did not play well. It's not a scary defense without Khalil Mack, for real. So looking at the Pittsburgh side of things, Pat Freiermuth is interesting at 35.5 receiving yards because Eric Ebron has been ruled out. I do think Najee Harris just makes a lot of sense. So Najee Harris over 0.5 rushing touchdowns, Najee Harris over 85.5 rushing yards. We're going to take touchdown over. I think he gets in. Then we got to take one from the Bears side. I want to take something on the under for Justin Fields' passing yards. 185.5 is not really a lot. I'm still going to take the under on it. So we're going to throw $10 on that. Najee Harris, rushing touchdown. Justin Fields, under 185.5 passing yards. $10 is going to get you 30. So if you use the promo code BDGE when you deposit 10, you're going to have $20 into your account to fuck around with, and you can make it $60. So we're going to run that. I don't even have fucking money in my account. What a loser I am. Can I do 5? Let's go. Hey, don't worry about what just happened there. Don't worry about another man's money. All right. Let's talk some games. So we could start off with a Thursday night football game. Damn, this is so smooth on the live stream. I'm so happy about this fucking computer. I wonder if I should be like zooming in for you guys. Is that better? Probably. Okay, so we'll start off on the Jets side of things. Mike White like Loki might be the actual truth. Unfortunately, we might not be able to find out. Zach Wilson activated from the IR for next week, but I do think Mike White might get another start. Josh Johnson came in after Mike White hurt his finger. I think the biggest storylines here would be Michael Carter still dominating work. Didn't have a big performance, but still ended up with 85 plus total yards. Saw 15 opportunities. So, he's still clearly the RB1 there. Ty Johnson is still looking good in the passing game. Still will be involved going forward. But the big takeaway here is Elijah Moore probably. 8 targets, 7 catches, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns. What I'll say is, it took like 9 weeks for this to happen. So it's like, yes, he had a big game and like we can get excited about it going forward, but like also about fucking time, sir. Someone that we were all really excited about coming out of Ole Miss, like super, super good combine numbers, really, really good numbers in college. So I think he's definitely a waiver wire pickup right now. The downside, of course, is that he's playing with guys like fucking Mike White and Zach Wilson, who will be back at quarterback soon, who paid him no attention. I did run the most, or he was on the field for the most snaps that he's had this year since week 2. 60% of the snaps he was on the field for this week, 78% was his season high from week 2 before that. So good to see him on the field. Good to see him get involved. With that, another caveat, as there always is with these fucking New York Jets, Corey Davis out for 2 straight games, had the hamstring injury. So he's going to be back sooner rather than later, and he has kind of operated as the number 1 possession receiver whenever he's healthy. So that's what I'll say about Elijah Moore. I'm not going to go nuts. But again, we see a lot of rookie wide receivers break out over the second half of the year. So he's definitely a guy that I would want to look at on the waiver wire if if I am desperate at wide receiver. The bye weeks for next week. There's 4 teams on bye, I believe. You have the Bears, you have the Bengals, the Giants, and the Texans. So for the Bears side, you're looking at Justin Fields, David Montgomery, and Khalil Herbert. David Montgomery will actually be activated for this game, which is why there are no lines up yet for the Bears running back situation on Underdog yet, but I'm sure they will be up there before the kickoff tonight. So stay tuned on that. I mean, your ass wasn't starting Allen Robinson or Donald Mooney. Anyways, we got the Bengals, which is a heavy-hitting fantasy offense. So you'll be without Burrow, Higgins, Boyd, Chase, and Joe Mixon. The New York Giants, you'll be without Daniel Jones, Kenny Golladay, if you're some godforsaken soul still starting him. Saquon should be back after the bye, but you'll be without Devonta Booker, that means. And, Shepard, Tony, whoever the fuck was out there. And then the Houston Texans. So that will be, normal fucking procedure as is. No one gives a shit about them. On the Colts side of things, Carson Wentz continues to be awesome. Michael continues to be awesome. Taylor continues to be awesome. That's all we got to say about that. Browns, Bengals. Man, for a long time, it sounded like all those people saying that the Browns and Baker might have been better without Odell Beckham. It's a small sample size, but it is the correct sample size at this point. Baker looked good, obviously super low volume, so it's hard to trust him in fantasy. Nick Chubb, just dominant. So, you feel really good about him. I think Kareem Hunt is still a couple weeks off from returning, so he's obviously Nick Chubb, high-end RB1. Got a couple targets in this game even, which was pretty sexy to see. Dearness Johnson, 8 carries, not really involved in the passing game. So any hope of him having upside of Kareem Hunt, yes, maybe he'll get the usage, 14 carries to 8 carries. Good to see, but 16 yards, absolutely not good to see. Donovan Peoples-Jones brought in a 60-yard touchdown. He will probably be the direct replacement for Odell Beckham Jr. The problem is you don't want Odell Beckham Jr. or the replacement for Odell Beckham Jr. He's definitely a speculative ad. He's a big play guy, super athletic, so maybe he turns into something. Jarvis Landry, just a terrible, terrible game. Did lead the team in targets, so he had 5 of the 21 pass attempts go his way, which is pretty nice target share, 23% or some shit like that. So definitely better days ahead for Jarvis Landry, just not a passing offensive type of day for the Browns. Nothing else to really see here. On the Cincinnati side of things, just an awful day all around. I think Jamar Chase, they just had an ugly day. A lot of big mistakes, some drop passes that led to interceptions. Not reading too much into it, but T. Higgins, as I said last week, 2 weeks ago, was a very good buy low candidate. Starting to see a ton of targets. Went 6 for 78 on 8 targets. So you love to see that. Jamar Chase, 13 targets, but just a shitty day for him. Obviously still a wide receiver 1 going forward. And I've been telling y'all to sell Joe Mixon. I look like a fucking asshole right now because he went 13 for 64 along with 2 touchdowns on the ground, 5 targets, 5 catches, 46 yards through the air. We'll have to see, how it shakes out with Chris Evans back in the mix because it's not like Mixon dominated the groundwork. 13 carries, P. Ryan 5 carries, but he got super involved in the passing game. Maybe that was a game script thing, but it was good to see him get 5 targets when P. Ryan only saw 3. Let me pull up the NFL schedule grid. The Bengals will be. You see how fucking quick this thing is? Do you see it? That was in real time. Me just doing that with the fucking 45 things plugged into my computer and software and apps and programs running right now. This thing is a beast. It's a fucking beast. Cincinnati plays. Oh, they got a bye next week. Or that's right. You'll be without them. Then they get Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, LA, San Fran, Denver, Baltimore, KC. So actually not a great slate of defenses, but in the beginning of the year, you might have been scared of a lot of these defenses, Chargers, San Fran, Denver, but you're not really too worried about them anymore going forward. What else we got here? Nothing really. Broncos, Cowboys. Just an absolute dominant BDSM type performance out of the Broncos. They split carries as usual. They just happen to have a higher ratio and just in terms of number of overall touches and carries for their running backs. 21 carries, 80 yards and a touchdown for Melvin, 17 carries, 111 yards for Javonte Williams. Good to see him have a little bit of a breakout game, but on a typical day, those carries will just go down by 20%, and it'll be Melvin Gordon with 15 and Javonte with 13 or whatever. So not looking into this game too much and being like, oh, Javonte Williams is now out, just a timeshare. We all fucking know this. And it doesn't look like either of them are pulling away by any means. Javonte Williams is going to be an absolute fucking beast next year, though. Every week it seems like he's just ripping off unbelievable runs, man. Shit, very, very Twitter timeline worthy. In the passing game, Tim Patrick leads the group 4 for 85 and a tugger. Judy did get 8 targets, so that was good to see that he led the team in targets with a target share of really fucking high, whatever it was. Had basically a 27% target share in this one. So it's hurting Cortland Sutton. Teddy Bridgewater is not a big play guy to begin with, but now you start adding Judy back into the mix as a leading target guy. And yeah, it's definitely a little bit concerning for Cortland Sutton. Jerry Judy, 6 for 69. So like a good day production-wise. He's just not really giving you a ceiling right now. Obviously, he's definitely usable in the flex spot. So I'll probably continue to fire. I have him in one dynasty league, and E-Town Get Down. I had to start him this week because I had like 5 guys on bye. But I feel pretty comfortable continuing to start Jerry Judy during these bye weeks. Up next, they get Philadelphia, then a bye, then the Chargers, KC, Detroit, Cincinnati. Wow, that's a really actually, the Chargers aren't too bad in the passing game, but they are super banged up in their secondary. But KC, Detroit, Cincinnati, Vegas, that's a nice little Oreo sandwich right there of all those teams. So Judy looks like a guy who might help you throw some dubs up in the standings going forward. Alberto, disappointing game with Noah Fant out. He should be back next week. On the Cowboys side of things, man, it was just ugly all around. Just a terrible game for Dak. I'm probably just going to throw this one out. Zeke left. He was on and off with a knee contusion, but he ended up finishing the game, kind of had his normal snaps in the second half. So I'm not going to read too much into that unless some new reports come out that it's a little bit more serious, or like bruising and swelling, came out after the game or this morning or whatever. So I will not. Jesus Christ, 72 fucking texts from Snacks and Animal. So on the flip side, dude, if you guys are into gambling, I'm not really I play Pick'em on Underdog a lot, right? Obviously we work with them, but I love playing those games. They're super fun. If you're like a fantasy person, you're really into statistics on a week over week basis. So you think you have a little bit of an edge, which you find out really quickly you fucking don't. Regardless, Bagels and Locks, Bagels and Locks is the betting video that we have on our channel. The betting film that we put out every depends when our editor is fucking having sex with his girlfriend. It's either Saturday morning or Sunday morning. They put it out every week. And not only is it low-key the only entertaining betting show that I've come across on the internet, but Snacks and Animal, because they're a shit show on camera, it's super entertaining. The editing is awesome, but they're 15-3 over their last 3 weeks on their picks. It's simple. It's there you go, Animal. You're fucking deviating into my brain without me even knowing it. They take 3 picks every single week, and then they add up the record over the course of the season. All right. So this is just a pitch. You guys should be watching Bagels and Locks. It's low-key, probably the best piece of content that BDG puts out weekly and gets the lowest number of views because Animal's fucking terrible at making thumbnails, which I'm going to help them out with. But regardless, 15-3 over the last 3 weeks. They're sharp. They're fucking sharp. And in the first, this is the 3rd year they've done it. In the first season, Animal started off 8 and 45 on his picks, ended up flipping it around and beating Snacks by 1. Snacks was rock hard, fire coming out the gate, 20 and 3. And Animal was the reverse of whatever the record was. Animal ended up coming back over the second half of the season, beating him by 1 game. And then last year, it also came down to, I believe, Super Bowl picks. So they go into the playoffs as well. It's always been a scorching hot finish. And those they're on fire right now. So make sure if you're in the gambling game, if you're in the betting game, we will continue to put out content for that. Animals and Snacks got that game on fucking lock down. All right. Bagels and Locks. Check it out every Saturday morning, Sunday morning. You'll be able to find it on my channel. Texans, Dolphins. I don't want to talk about this shit at all. Tua's a fucking asshole for sitting out at the end of this game real quick. Here's the one takeaway I have. One, Tyrod was awful. Tyrod was so bad. Brandon Cooks did have 13 targets, which I guess is good to see, but when they're Tyrod Taylor targets, it's not the best thing in the world. On the Miami side, Devonte Parker, and this is something I've talked about last week. I talked about the week before that. When they have a condensed funnel of targets, you can play Waddle and Gesicki, and you were able to play both of them in this game. 10 targets for Waddle, 8 targets for Gesicki. As long as their other wide receivers, Fuller and Parker, are out, which they both will be out for this upcoming game. I want to say they play on Thursday night. Miami plays Baltimore on Thursday night. Is that correct? I guess so. Unless, are they the Thursday night game this week? Yep, Baltimore and Miami Thursday night. So you can that is a pass funnel defense in Baltimore. So you could, without a doubt, play Waddle. You could definitely play Gesicki next week. But the big thing here for me was Myles Gaskin, man. I think he's a really, really good buy low if you can buy him low. I know whoever like owns Myles Gaskin right now is probably, oh fuck, we're not on the screen, huh? Sheesh. How come y'all didn't tell me? And by that, y'all definitely told me. I just wasn't looking at the fucking chat. I'm trying to focus. Myles Gaskin, 20 carries. Let me zoom in a little bit because you guys probably can't even see this. Sheesh. 20 carries for Myles Gaskin, 34 yards and a touchdown. So just awful on the ground. Just really, really bad. Gets 6 targets, turns them into 6 catches and 23 yards. So you're talking about 26 touches for Myles Gaskin. I don't know how you do that against Houston. Like you get 26 touches and end up with fucking 55 yards against Houston. Terrible. But like if there's ever been a really encouraging sign with Malcolm Brown out is what Myles Gaskin had on Sunday. The offensive line for Miami is really bad, but they're going to be a lot better when Tua is back. Their offense will run smoother. Jacoby Brissett was kind of just shoved in last minute. So, like, I'm not surprised that their offense didn't play well. But when Tua's back, I think Myles Gaskin is going to be like a legit sneaky top 15 running back going forward, especially just in terms of volume. Falcons Saints, let's fucking go. Dirty Birds. Matt Ryan looked amazing for the first time like ever. I saw a stat today that like the Atlanta's run offense, as you could see, their numbers right here were just like the worst. Legitimately, so one of those analytics nerds on Twitter was saying that the EPA of the Atlanta rushing offense was the worst EPA of any offense of the last 20 years. Mike Davis, 9 for 13, 1.4 yards per carry. Cordarrelle Patterson, 9 for 10, 1.1 yards per carry. Felipe Franks and Matt Ryan, the two quarterbacks, 7 carries for 11 yards. Like, that was the worst game of all time from a rushing offense. It's incredible. Cordarrelle Patterson, also incredible. Mike Davis is terrible. He is so bad, and you can't start him unless they're playing against like Houston. Cordarrelle Patterson ended up with 9 carries for 10 yards, but in the receiving game, caught all 6 of his targets for 126 yards. And this was the trade that I did. You know, I talked about it last week. I made a trade in the E-Town Get Down where I sent Antonio Gibson, Chase Edmonds, and Carson Wentz for Cordarrelle Patterson, Tua, and some fab dollars because I was at 0. I was looking at like I'd rather own Cordarrelle Patterson than Gibson and Edmonds combined, and now Edmonds has the high ankle sprain, so obviously that I got lucky and it turned out to do well. If Tua was in the fucking game, I'd feel a lot. You know, I didn't know Tua was hurt when I made the trade, so he would have ended up being a big piece of the offense for me this week because I'm going into tonight's game. I'm down 25. Half PPR, I have Chase Claypool and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So I don't feel confident about that whatsoever. It's definitely possible because like the Steelers defense has been rock hard and Claypool obviously has a very high ceiling, even though he's sucked shit the last couple of weeks. But the way I was looking at it was like, you know, that ended up being a good trade for me pretty much because Cordarrelle Patterson's ceiling is so high. He should have had a much bigger game. He got stuffed on the goal line a few times. He had a lot of red zone involvement that just didn't turn into touchdowns, but he could have easily had like 2 touchdowns in this game, and it could have been like a 25 to 30 point game for him. Nothing else really to see here as Calvin Ridley is out. You keep starting Kyle Pitts. Russell Gage is – I hated that like Tajay Sharp was like a thing last week because Russell Gage is the next wide receiver up, but you just don't want to start him. On the flip side of things, Trevor Siemian, like what the fuck ever. Just start Taysom Hill, please. Just start fucking Taysom Hill. Stupid ass Sean Payton. All right, let's keep rolling. Raiders versus the Giants. Josh Jacobs is another super interesting trade target in my opinion. He's probably going to be one of the easier like trade targets going forward. He's been super involved, especially in the passing game. 4 targets in this one. I want to say over the last 3-4 games since Gruden's been gone, his target numbers have been pretty healthy. Or at least, I mean, on the season, 4 targets, 3 targets, only 1, 5 targets, 5 targets. So he's like catching balls and he's getting targets and stuff. And I feel like that's going to be a pretty significant piece of this offense, especially with Henry Ruggs gone and not having a real replacement there. Darren Waller, good to see. bike there, 7 for 92. Hunter Renfrow obviously takes a big piece of that pie when Henry Ruggs is over there on Alcatraz, 7 for 49 and a touchdown on 9 targets. So you continue to fire up Hunter Renfrow as a flex play. I will say, though, like, the dude's averaging like 8 targets a game, and he's yet to hit 80 yards. So, like, he's basically a more condensed version of Cole Beasley. You know, like, they're both seeing around the same volume, but Beasley has much higher ceiling and much lower floor. Renfrow continues to see, 8 targets a game, but turns it into 55 yards. You're going to be happy when he scores a touchdown, of course, but I don't know. Kenyon Drake's super involved as well. 8 more targets, 6 for 70 through the air. So I think he's like kind of a desperate flex play as well, because they're getting their running backs super involved in their game plan. On the New York side of things, a big game from Devonta Booker, of course, because I was playing against him in E-Town Get Down. Daniel Jones with 110 passing yards. Congrats, my guy. Really disappointing for everybody else. I mean, when you throw for 110 yards, it's going to be disappointing, but like Kadarius Toney, 1 target, just so bad by Jason Garrett, the game planning here. It's like anytime you can give Devonta Booker 21 times the number of touches you can give Kadarius Toney, you just have to do it. They get their bye next week. Saquon should be back after the bye. Kadarius Toney will probably be fully healthy after the bye. They should have their offense in full strength after the bye, so could get interesting there. Patriots, Panthers. Okay. Mac Jones throws for 139 yards. Sam Darnold throws for 172 yards. So we have nothing out of the passing game. Few takeaways, though. Ramantra Stevenson and Damian Harris both left this game with head injuries, and I don't think – let me check the Twitter world real quick. I don't think we have any news yet on whether or not, they suffered concussions or if they're in the concussion protocol right now or whatever, but let us see. Yeah, so they both left the game at some point with a head injury, so you're gonna have to keep a close eye on that. Like, obviously, if Damian Harris misses, Ramantra Stevenson is going to be one of the top pickups this week. Damian Harris has just been playing so fucking well lately, though. He's just scoring so many touchdowns. Yeah, so we have no updates on those two, but those are ones to keep a really, really close eye on, because if Damian Harris misses time, Ramantra Stevenson is the pickup. If both of them miss time, it's usually when guys get a concussion, they have the rate of clearance by the next week is like 70 to 80%, so it's pretty high, but 30% don't. So if both of them end up missing next week, Brandon Bolden becomes the obvious pickup here. He had 8 carries for 54 yards. He's also super involved in the passing game, typically on a week-to-week basis, but there's nobody else you can trust in the passing game. Ramantra Stevenson went over 100 because he went 2 for 44 through the air, had a really nice catch and run, 10 for 62 on the ground. So he's looking as good as he did in preseason. So, again, he becomes a top pick up if Harris is in the concussion protocol. Yeah, just really ugly for the other passing options, and so you can't really trust any of them in your lineup. It's getting hard to trust anyone in the Carolina offense, but it was good to see Christian McCaffrey bite 14 for 52 on the ground, 4 for 54 through the air. He did look pretty good. He looked like 90% of his old self. The problem is the Carolina Panthers offensive line spreads their legs like a fucking nun. They open up no holes, and Christian McCaffrey actually only played like 49% of the snaps. We saw these other running backs contribute in the passing game, like Chuba Hubbard, 2 targets, Amir Abdullah, 5 targets. So a lot of the time, those will all be going to Christian McCaffrey, but it's a good step in the right direction for him to play 50% of the snaps and see 18 touches. So you got to be excited as a Christian McCaffrey owner going forward. They get the Arizona Cardinals next week, which is a really good defense. Washington, Miami, a bye, Atlanta. So outside of that bye, those 3 games after Arizona are really, really crispy, and C-Mac might get a lot of people into the playoffs if you're not hurting already too bad. Sam Darnold looks so fucking bad. Looks so bad. But there's nothing really they can do at the quarterback position, and it's definitely hurting DJ Moore. I just think you got to kind of look at him as like a wide receiver too now, because the consistency of accurate targets is just not there. Everybody else on Carolina is super droppable. Bills, Jags. I sometimes I wish, like, not sometimes, but like I wish I was as happy about anything in my entire life as Chris Hansen was about talking about Josh Allen yesterday. Like if you watched Red Zone at all, if you turned it on for any stretch of 5 seconds, you heard the name Josh Allen 45 times because the Bills quarterback is Josh Allen. If you didn't know, the Jacksonville Jaguars picked a defensive end by the name of Josh Allen in the first round a couple of years ago as well. And it was like the first time a guy with the same name sacked another guy with the same name. And Chris Hansen just like could not stop talking about it. It was like got to the point where it was like weird. It was like getting uncomfortable. I was like, we fucking get it, Chris. Like, you really like your job and your life and you love Josh Allen. Very happy for you. Just wish I loved anything as much as he loved talking about it yesterday. But it looked like Josh Allen, the defensive lineman, sucked the powers out of the other Josh Allen because he wasn't like terrible, but like he definitely was not consistent yesterday, the quarterback Josh Allen, which led to the entire team kind of struggling. One of the takeaways from this game is the Zach Moss injury. I believe he left with a concussion as well. So again, 70% plus chance of him returning for next week's game. But if not, I mean, it makes Josh Allen a high-end RB1, basically. They play the Jets next week, which means the game script will be really, really good for Devin Singletary. So he becomes an interesting flex play there because he'll probably take most of the carries. I'd imagine they activate Matt Breida, but he's not going to be used really. Devin Singletary doubled Zach Moss's carry totals. Also saw 8 fucking targets in this game, 4 for 65, 8 targets, 7 for 43. So super involved in the passing game. Manuel Sanders and Diggs both get 8 targets. Cole Beasley's like used as a fucking running back at this point. 11 targets, 8 catches for 33 yards. So not much that you don't know here. I will say Cole Beasley's involvement has skyrocketed since Dawson Knox has been gone. When Dawson Knox started breaking out a few weeks ago, Cole Beasley's fantasy numbers were absolutely anemic. As soon as Dawson Knox went out, he started getting like 11 targets a game. So if Dawson Knox continues to be out, you can depend on high volume for Beasley. If he's not out, then if he's back, I would probably simmer my expectations on Mr. Beasley. Otherwise, I think you just keep throwing Diggs, Sanders, and Beasley into your lineups, and Singletary will be super interesting if Zach Moss misses next week against the Jets. Jacksonville, Carlos Hyde filled in as the bell cow with James Robinson out, 21 for 67 on the ground. Didn't do much through the air, but good to know, I guess, if you have James Robinson, you can hold on to Hyde as a handcuff for the next week or two in case he like re-aggravates the heel. They made it seem like he was going to play this week, so I can't imagine he misses next week's game. James Robinson, I'm referring to. They play Indy, so not like a stifling defense, but not a terrible defense either. Dan Arnold continues to dominate the targets there. 7 targets, leads the team, 4 for 60. So he continues to be a pretty rock solid tight end 1. No other takeaways here. Just everyone stinks. Marvin Jones should have caught a nice touchdown down the sideline at the end of the game-ish there, but didn't come up with it. I think he's still just like a low-end flex play that you can maybe depend on. But other than that, like no one else you're starting. Vikings, Ravens. Vikings just fucking pathetic. Like that. This was another stat I think I heard on a podcast this morning. Dalvin Cook finished the first quarter with 85 rushing yards, and there was a point, it was either the third quarter or the fourth quarter when he had 83 rushing yards. So he was dominating, and I'm like, oh, finally, we get a ceiling game out of Dalvin Cook. Didn't happen. 17 for 110 on the ground because he had that 66-yard run in the beginning of the game. He's just not getting it done through the air. It's like usually that's where his bread and butter is, right? He's adding 40, 50 yards through the air for you. 3 targets, 3 catches, 12 yards. He did get a touchdown called back. Like he got in, then they reviewed it. Kirk Cousins took the next play and snuck it up the middle like a little cunt that he is. So Kirk Cousins' big day, at least statistically speaking, had a rushing touchdown and had 2 passing touchdowns. Other than that, I mean, Justin Jefferson started off with a 50-yard touchdown, scored it, and then really had nothing. He had just 19 more yards through the rest of the game. So disappointing from the Vikings offense. Like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing over there. Terrible offensive game plan, just poor execution. And that allowed Baltimore and Lamar Jackson to just go absolutely nuts. So Lamar Jackson, 266 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. I do have to get some liquid right now. Hold on. Oi, 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 oi. Lamar Jackson, 266 passing yards, 3 tuggers, 21 carries for 120 yards on the ground. I believe this was the 3rd game ever in the history of the NFL that a quarterback had over 20 carries. I think Lamar Jackson has 2 of them now. So again, putting you up high-end RB1 numbers along with, 20 fucking fantasy points through the air. Pretty much unstoppable, especially because, again, I was going against him in E-Town Get Down, of course. But I think one of the bigger takeaways here is Devonta Freeman, man. So Latavius Murray has been out with the high ankle sprain. And I think Devonta Freeman becomes, you should have picked him up a couple weeks ago. They had the bye, so maybe you had to drop him. But I would definitely look to pick him back up because, again, they play Thursday night, so they don't have a lot of time to rest. Latavius Murray did not practice at all last week. So Latavius Murray not even getting in a limited practice tells me that there's a really, really high chance he misses next week's game as well. And again, they play against Miami. So this should be a really good, friendly script for the Ravens running backs. It is kind of like a split between Freeman and Le'Veon Bell. But Freeman is just so much better than Bell. He looks so much better. Freeman looks like legitimately good. 13 for 79, 6.1 yards per carry on the ground. Catches a short touchdown through the air. Le'Veon Bell also got a goal line carry. So he seems to be pretty involved on the goal line, but Freeman looks like the one with burst. He looks like the one that can provide you big plays. He's plenty involved in the red zone as well. Maybe not all the goal line carries, but definitely the best back that they have to offer right now. Tyson Williams, just fucking RIP, man. Not even a single carry. Otherwise, Marquis Brown, you still continue fire him up as a wide receiver 1, 12 targets, 9 catches, 116 yards. Bateman, good game, 8 targets, 5 catches, 52 yards. He's still not really like showing us that he's a good fantasy asset, so it's kind of hard to put him in there as anything other than like a bye week filler at flex. Mark Andrews still, 10 fucking targets, still a tight end 1, just a down game a little bit here. It was all Lamar Jackson. Chargers, Eagles. So the Chargers won on that walk-off, on the walk-off at the end of the game, I think, right? Didn't they kicked a field goal, I believe, at the end of the game to win it. Herbert, 356 yards to the air, 2 touchdowns, also adds 14 yards on the ground and a tugger. Takeaways here, not a lot of big takeaways. Donald Parham is starting to run more routes than Jared Cook, so that's something to monitor. He's still not getting volume, but he did score a touchdown here. Just like the entire tight end group here was actually very involved. You have Jared Cook, 4 for 48, Parham, 3 for 39, touchdown. Steven Anderson, 4 for 39 and a touchdown. Down game for Austin Eckler, but those are going to happen to anybody. The big takeaway here, I guess, is Mike Williams, man. He's just not it. He's just not getting it done. 2 for 58 here. And I want to say it's like 3 or 4 games in a row where he has just not been a fantasy factor. So I guess you could start downgrading him. You hate to see it because he was on pace to be like a top 5 wide receiver this year. And I don't know if it has something to do with like Justin Herbert, but they get Minnesota next week, which is low-key a pretty damn good defense. You get Pittsburgh the week after that, which is a very good defense. So it doesn't get too much easier, but it does, I guess, down the stretch, maybe Denver, Cincinnati, Giants, Kansas. Okay, it gets way easier. But for now, like, I don't know how much you can expect out of Mike Williams. You're still starting him, in my opinion, because he has such a high ceiling. But Keenan Allen has taken over. 13 targets, 12 catches, 104 yards. Mike Williams still a flex guy, but hard to trust him at this point. Jalen Hurts, 62 yards on the ground, 162 through the air in a tugger. The big takeaway here is that rotation at running back for Philly. 17 for 71 on the ground and a touchdown for Jordan Howard. 17 fucking carries for Jordan Howard. Didn't have a single running back with the target. So after Boston Scott game, honestly, I kind of felt like this was pretty easy to see with Boston Scott. Like, it was going to be hard to trust him in any game because they're, 1, a committee, but 2, like, we have no idea if he's getting the goal line work with Jordan Howard there. And now we kind of see that he's not. And then Kenneth Gainwell got a random goal line carry. So hard to trust any of them. But Jordan Howard seems to be the most involved one and the guy I guess you can trust the most right now. If you look at their snap counts, let's up. I want to check something right quick. How do I check my RAM? That ain't it. I don't know how to do this. Storage. Whatever. Fuck that. Fuck you. What was I looking at? Philly? Yeah. Hey, make sure y'all hit the thumbs up button if you don't hate the fucking video so far. Let's see. Boston Scott still led the team with 44% of the targets. Jordan Howard had 40, and then Kenneth Gainwell had 19. So Kenneth Gainwell actually played fewer. I guess they weren't getting blown out, so that makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, Boston Scott's still the RB1, but not on a touch basis, I guess. So I wouldn't be, it'd probably vary between Scott and Jordan Howard in terms of like touches. Miles Sanders will be back eventually. So it's like, it's an ugly backfield to really guess on. So you can't really have a lot of confidence in any of those guys, though I would definitely be picking up Jordan Howard if I needed a running back or a flex spot. Philly, no one involved except for Devontae Smith. It was strictly just him. Big game from him. Could have seen that coming. I put him in most of my underdog picks because the Chargers were without like all of their starting cornerbacks. What else do we got? So we've got the Packers Chiefs, we've got the Cardinals Niners, and then the last game of the evening. So Packers Chiefs was just so ugly, man. I really don't know what to make of this Chiefs offense. They're just bad. They're just straight up bad. Mahomes is playing terrible. 166 passing yards, 4.5 yards per attempt. Jordan Love looked terrible. Jordan Love looked awful, but Mahomes somehow averaged a full yard, 1.1 yards less per attempt than Jordan Love did. Just so bad. Takeaways, Darrell Williams just absolutely dominated Derek Gore in terms of touches and involvement. 19 carries to Gore's 3. Darrell Williams, 4 targets to Gore's 1. So it was a really, really cute week for Derek Gore last week, but seems like that dream is over. The Gore dynasty has officially fallen. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't know if he's going to be back next week. You should start to hear some rumbles of return, but I don't know if he's even close to returning yet, to be honest with you. The Chiefs play the Raiders next week and then Dallas before a bye. So I think you could start Darrell Williams with like semi confidence, I guess, right? 22 touches I'd like to say 22 touches in the Chiefs offense is nice, but it's really not anymore. Yeah, listen, if I own Mahomes, like I'm still gonna start him. I'm still like, I'm not gonna be streaming guys over him just because we know any given day he could just whip out a fucking 304 touchdown game. And I feel like that's just worth having in your lineup. But yes, you just kind of close your eyes and hope it happens. On the flip side, so Jordan Love comes in and again plays terrible. The running backs get very little involvement in this one. Dillon did get 8 carries and 4 targets for 4 catches, 44 yards. So he had as many touches as Aaron Jones did and produced more because he had a lot of targets. Here's what I'll say. Aaron Rodgers is, if all things go perfectly and he is completely asymptomatic, does not have any symptoms over this week, he will be able to return to the facilities on Saturday, which is obviously pushing it super, super close. So it has to go perfectly. He'll return Saturday to play Seattle. Seattle will probably have Russell Wilson back at this point. So, go on as normal, starting Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, A.J. Dillon is a bad flex play if you want to with Aaron Rodgers. But if Aaron Rodgers does not make it back, the only guy you could really trust is Devontae Adams. I mean, you're probably still going to start Aaron Jones in your flex, but like hard to feel good about it. Cardinals 49ers. We were without Kyler. We were without DeAndre Hopkins. We were without A.J. Green, and James Conner just absolutely down. Actually, a lot of takeaways from Arizona's side. We won't really talk about the receiving side of things because, again, Kyler wasn't there. He might not play next week either. They're playing with house money right now. They walked away with a dub, and they play – who do they play next week? Play Carolina, who has been awful. So it's almost like Arizona's defense might be able to just straight up beat Carolina's offense next week. So maybe they just don't push it with Kyler, right? Let them, because they won this game. And again, playing with house money, like they just let Kyler rest another week. Same thing with D-Hop. So the big story here, of course, is Chase Edmonds suffers a high ankle sprain. I believe he's going to be put on the IR. So he'll be out at least 3 weeks, if not more. James Conner is just completely taken over. Holy shit, what a game by James Conner. Looked good, too. Looked like vintage James Conner. 21 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. Had a long of 35 yards on the ground. The big part of this was that he took over Chase Edmonds' role and then made Chase Edmonds his fucking daughter. 5 targets, 5 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Chase Edmonds wishes he could sniff 77 yards through the air. But James Conner became a bell cow, became the workhorse, became a featured back in an offense that's absolutely rolling. 8-1, 31 points without Kyler Murray. So yes, James Conner is a must start as long as Chase Edmonds is out, obviously. The really interesting part of this is Eno Benjamin, man. And I also tweeted this out this summer when I had my 2 dynasty startup drafts. I said there was 4 players I came away with my dynasty drafts from the 2 startups I had this summer. There's 4 players that I came away with both teams with. One of them was Khalil Herbert. The second one was Eno Benjamin. Eno Benjamin low-key had like one of, if not the nicest touchdown run of this season yesterday. He didn't get a lot of work. 9 carries, 39 yards, but he scored this touchdown where he absolutely truck-sticked the shit out of this dude. It was embarrassing. Like, I feel bad for the family if they were watching. But Benjamin's a good player, man. Benjamin is a guy with a 3-down skill set. I don't know if y'all remember him coming out of college from Arizona State, but he is a really good pass catcher as well. 15.6% college target share, 94th percentile. He had a ton of receiving work in college. I don't know if they have their college numbers on here. No, I guess they don't. On Player Profiler. But he caught like 40 to 45 passes in his last season, which is a huge number for college. So, Benjamin, I expect to play like a little bit of the Chase Edmonds role. I could see him playing like 50% of what Chase Edmonds was, which on some days that'll be like 10 touches. And Eno's a really, really talented player. So I think he's definitely worth picking up in deeper leagues and just seeing what happens if they just want to give James Conner 48 touches a game. But that's the big takeaway there. On the Niners side of things, good to see Kittle back. Good to see Debo looking at least pretty healthy. Elijah Mitchell looked plenty healthy despite the rib reports. He basically was like the only running back involved at all in this game, 8 for 36. Also saw 5 targets, caught 5 of them for 43, which was big. The receivers, though, George Kittle, obviously, he bite 6 catches, 101, and a touchdown. So you're starting him every week as a tight end 1. Debo, 5 for 63 on 9 targets. Brandon Ayuk, the big story here. Everyone dropped his ass, and now he goes 8 targets, 6 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. And now everyone's like, we're fucking bike on Ayuk. Here's the thing. Here's the thing is that he's Brandon Ayuk still. And I like, how are you going to get excited after one game, And it was a game where like Debo and these guys were probably limited. I want to see the snap counts and see what we got here. Week 9. So we had Brandon Ayuk playing 93% of the snaps. Debo, 92. Kittle, 73. All right. So it seems like we have our starting roster, at least, for the Niners at this point, right? No more fuckboy, like Trent Sherfield stuff. No more Mohamed Sanu shit. Like, Brandon Ayuk is the guy there now, all right? He's a guy. He's one of the guys. I would still 100. I mean, this is not fucking news to anybody. You'd much rather still own Debo over Ayuk, but, like, at least it was good to see. This felt like an easy week to predict Ayuk to have a big game, More so because I thought Debo was going to miss it, but regardless, Ayuk operated as the one, and I guess, like, going forward, you can start him, but, like, who do they play next week? They play Carolina, who's got, still a good defense, man. They play Carolina, and Stephon Gilmore's playing like a bouse. So I don't know. I don't trust Ayuk still. I'd love to see him blow up over the second half of the season, but it's still hard to imagine that happening with Kittle and Debo playing as good as they are. Titans-Rams in the first game without Mr. Derrick Henry. I think we're going to see some monster games out of Ryan Tannehill going forward. I think we're going to see some huge, huge games. Obviously, this was against the Rams, so a tough defense. He doesn't throw for a lot. Does get in on the ground. I think we're going to see a lot more big ground games from Tannehill. But the backfield, we were trying to figure out, how it splits up without Henry. And it was a very clear running back by committee. You have Adrian Peterson with 10 carries, Jeremy McNichols with 7, Deonta Foreman with 5. Honestly, Foreman looked like the best one, but I think Peterson got the goal line carry. He scored a touchdown. I think he will end up being, the main guy. I think the fact that it was even this close in the split was only a factor of him, just being signed off the practice squad. I think Peterson will probably continue to separate himself. Again, this was against the Rams, so that's a very tough team. They play the Saints, which is a really, really tough team as well. So you're not starting anyone in the backfield against the Saints. They play Houston after that. I wouldn't be surprised if AP has a really big game in week 11. And then over the last 4 weeks of the season, they get Jacksonville. Pittsburgh's obviously tough, but San Francisco and Miami to close things out. So AP, I'm still going to hold on to AP if I own him. What else do we got? Julio Jones, he's back, but like at this point, he honestly might be unplayable. 4 targets, 4 catches, 35 yards. Let's see the snap splits here. Julio played on 74% of the snaps, so basically a full-time player. He was a wide receiver too, so I guess like Julio just might be what he is now. AJ Brown looks like such a, he didn't turn out a big performance, 11 targets, 5 catches, 42 yards, but like on his catches, he looks like the most dominant wide receiver in the NFL right now. Like I wouldn't be surprised if from now on to the end of the season, he's the wide receiver 1 overall. I'd be surprised because the guy Cooper Kupp on the other side of things is alive, so that won't happen, but y'all get the sentiment. Y'all get the point. On the Rams side of things, tough game for Matt Stafford, just really, really bad. Darrell Henderson, though, he like tweaked his ankle. 11 for 55 on the ground, tweaked his ankle, left the game, came back into the game, and then I believe left the game again. So keep a really, really close eye on that, because if he misses time, Sony Michel is operated as the clear number 2. There's no other running back even getting touches in this offense. So Michel would be one of the top waiver wire pickups this week if Darrell Henderson ends up being hurt. The Rams play the 49ers next week by Green Bay, Jacksonville. So I don't expect extended time for Darrell Henderson to miss because he's got to bye after this upcoming week, but something to keep an eye on. Robert Woods continues to be really, really good since he was really, really bad in the beginning of the season. Cooper Kupp, another 13 targets, just dominant. That's really all the takeaways from here. There's nothing else to take away here. Yep. All right, let's check Underdog one more time and see if they put any of the running back lines up here yet. Nope, nothing from Demont or Khalil Herbert. All right, we'll stick with that one then. Y'all know the fucking vibes. The vibes. Underdog Fantasy, the link to the app will be right in the description. It's a thing right below us. If you deposit for the first time using promo code BDGE, they're going to match it up to $100. Put $10 down, you'll have $20 in your account with promo code BDGE. Put $50, you'll have $100. Put $100, you'll have $200, and you could lose all your fucking money. Let's do it. Let's lose our money together. All right, we need 25 from Chase Claypool and the Pittsburgh defense. Need it. I need it. Otherwise, my whole fucking week is ruined. All right, that's all I got for y'all today. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Tomorrow's video will be the waiver wire video. I'll go much more in depth on the guys that I glossed over today. That'll be live 5 a.m. Eastern time, as always, on Tuesday. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We also do our in-depth waiver wire fab guidance article. That's an exclusive to the membership site, bdge.store/community, which is where I put my weekly rankings, which is where you get into the BDGE Discord, which is where you can join Dynasty Startup Leagues in the offseason with other BDGE members. All right. Thank you all for hanging around today. That is it. And I'll see y'all tomorrow.